This is Real Paul. He's a man that personifies what it means to be a gray rat, passing off responsibilities, shamelessly banging his maid, making emotionally rash decisions, yet has tons of other redeeming good guy, good father qualities. This is his lesson. This is his story. This is the legend of the great Real Paul Gray Rat. Rejoice as Father's Day brings a whole new lesson from respectfully yours, the realer than real Paul Gray Rat. This episode will cover Mushoku Tensei Season 2 Episode 22, Oya. What I loved about this episode is the metaphors that derive from Rudy's journey. This is what makes it different from many of the other shonen kind of animes. This show is a lot deeper than that. And I think there's a huge, heartwarming, yet sad and tragic lesson behind Real Paul's character and what he means to Rudy and his journey. Because it's from his perspective. He's the main character. It's these kind of episodes that really make you think deeper and make you want to call your dad and tell him that you appreciate him because it's Real Paul Day. So guys, let's jump right into it. Real Paul, Alina Lise, Geese, Talhin, and Dorunuma make it to the end of the stairs where it leads them to the next stratum. They are finally at a checkpoint where they can double back again and play it safe like they have been with Geese, asking Real Paul about this very thing. But Real Paul feels it in his bones that they are finally so close after years of Zenith missing. Real Paul gives the reassurance that they are prepared and that they can still advance. Roxy asks Rudy if he needed any scrolls to be prepared for the next stratum and accepts a few healing scrolls. Roxy happily hands over the scrolls and gives a very positive outlook, like we don't really know how strong this guardian's like, but everything will be a-okay because we have Real Paul and Alina Lise.
Yeah, of course, Rudy. I'll be there for you.
Before Rudy can get a taste of that Roxy rim, the story must Suzuki. Real Paul gets his crew ready for the big teleportation into the super duper S tier hard as hell mode and tries to inform Rudy of some famous last words. But Rudy is like, "Father, it's Father's Day. It can wait until everything is happily ever after." To Real Paul's slight disappointment, he accepts Rudy's response. Then Real Paul gives the signal. It's now or never to save Casa. When it comes to adventures and going to the unknown, there's always this super duper optimistic feeling that people get. There's this excitement to go into that unknown, but that's what it is, an unknown, where lives are on the line. I mean, just look at Roxy. She moisted herself on the third stratum. What makes them think that things can't go wrong? Maybe it could be time to get some more people that can fight. That is what the hook of this episode is all about, is heading into that unknown. And what I mentioned before about metaphors, the hook is that representation of not knowing what is going to happen. You have to make decisions, and decisions that you make, you have to live with them because there is no perfect decision. There are only decisions that you can only make, that you can hope that that is the best outcome from that decision. So in this instance, not just from Rudy's decision to come to help save his mom, it is Real Paul's decision that he believes that they are in the best possible position right now. And also the little nugget is from the previous episode when Real Paul, he wants to tell Rudy about some things that are deep and intimate, but Rudy tells him to wait. And that is the famous last words. That is the foreshadowing from the previous episode. And this is where we get the feeling that we're left with that some shit is about to go down. And if the crew led by the great Real Paul can lead everyone to the end goal. But overall, the takeaway from the hook of the episode is to live with your decisions, because you can only hope that you make the best decision with what you can work with and know. The crew led by Real Paul cautiously walk through the halls of the next stratum and run into a Hydra. Geese has never seen one in person before, and quickly Real Paul sees Zenith trapped within this crystallized structure. This rare, destructively dangerous monster is standing in his way. This is a moment where I really thought that they can use this as a cliffhanger for the previous episode, but then again, what they use for the hook of this episode is to really drive home this Real Paul and Rudy relationship. And to drive home the magnitude of making a huge decision by Real Paul. But at the same time, it just feels like right after the opening credits, boom, we're right there, Zenith is there, there's a monster, shit's about to go down. To me, it just feels really sudden. Like there wasn't that build up back up to this very moment. But, you know, let's just say that's life. Suddenly, things happen. Rudy questions exactly what is Zenith doing in this crystal and why is she naked? And Geese yells out to Real Paul to not rush in. And we've now just witnessed the rashness of the Grey Rat gene unfold as he rushes in anyways with Zenith crystallized right before him. However, rashness may lower a Grey Rat's life expectancy. With Real Paul sprinting right into the Hydra, everyone starts to mobilize. Tao-Hen takes out his axe, and Roxy and Rudy quickly support Real Paul's attack on the Hydra with an icicle break and a stone cannon. The spells were easily blocked by some kind of magical Hydra resistance, and Real Paul continues to rush in like a Grey Rat's HP is infinite. One by one, Real Paul snatches the Hydra's head. As he is fully enraged and consumed by his efforts to save his wife, the Hydra starts to fend off Real Paul, and he gets frustratingly pushed back, and then Alina Lise rushes in, makes a push to help support Real Paul by smacking the living Cliff's manhood out of the Hydra with her shield and sword. Unfortunately for Miss Dragon Road, the Hydra scales are just too powerful as she can't just pound it hard enough like other men pound her. Roxy starts rattling off more random magical spells like
Flip Flash!
This support move shielded both Alina Lise and Real Paul by making them slippery wet and reeled them away from the dangerous Hydra monster. And then, holy Dorphin, Tao-Hen looks to take some screen time by actually doing something besides glazing Rudy's assets and using an earth pillar, which means a big ass rock comes flying in from the ceiling, and whatever magical resistance that is protecting the Hydra blocks that as well. It looks like physical attacks may be the only way to go in the meantime until they come up with a better plan. Rudy recognizes that the Hydra is making weird high-pitched noises that has been blocking everyone's magic. Is the fight against this Hydra too much to handle? Should they retreat and continue to play it safe like all the times before? Just as Rudy ponders over what they should do next, Roxy points out the Hydra got that Piccolo gene in him and starts to regenerate his head back like its perfect cell. This is starting to become like quite the regretful battle indeed. Roxy recommends retreating, but Real Paul ain't having none of that and rushes in again. Tao-Hen tells Geese to start geesing, and he throws a special Geese underhanded maneuver. Dust! This blinds the Hydra, and Geese hold me back Real Paul in a desperate attempt to prevent the Grey Rat gene from going out of control from his Grey Rat emotions. Real Paul, in his enraged like mind that is completely opposite from his cool, calm like yet stern demeanor, has changed into that's not a very good leader. He tells Geese to back the fuck off, and Miss Dragon Road has been waiting for this kind of moment to give Real Paul a smack to the face. Not a hard one, but a very condescending one. As Alina Lise, Geese, and Real Paul retreat like they are trying to beat their previous 40 times, Alina Lise yells out to Rudis, and Rudis delivers with his own geesing maneuver of his own. Dust! They make it all back to the teleporter just in the nick of time. And thank goodness, everyone made it out alive. Real Paul's actions didn't result in any injuries or death, just a big ass loss in morale and loss of dust! On a more serious note, right away we get to see Real Paul. In the previous 2 episodes, we saw all of his redeeming good qualities. Now we're starting to see the opposite spectrum of Real Paul, his emotions. And you know, that is just what being a human, and more or less a Grey Rat, is all about. And no matter how strong you are and how strong Rudy is, sometimes you run into enemies that are your worst enemies. It has all the answers for your best attributes. Now, it really forces all the characters to actually come up with a better strategy, that they have to work together and be patient. I mean, it's been what, 6 years since the teleportation event? Or even longer? Does Real Paul really want to give it all away in one day? Alina Lise has a really nasty wound on her left shoulder and Rudy quickly heals it. Miss Dragon Roll plays it off like a light scratch and looks to his father, Real Paul Grey Rat, with a disappointed look. Real Paul is visibly inaudibly frustrated because Zenith is right there. Rudy tries to calm him down and Real Paul says he is calm. Rudy asks a dumbass question like, is Kazan even alive? And Real Paul rightfully stays angry but wrongfully gets ready to exact his revenge on his son. But Tauhen stops Father's Day from being single Mother's Day. Rudy is like, getting angry won't do ish. And Real Paul can't believe he's acting so calm with his mother just chilling there. Then Rudy says the quiet part out loud and confirms what the audience has been thinking the entire time. Rudy gets lost in his own thoughts as he questions, why is he so calm? He never really built a strong bond or connection with his mother. He was only 7 and it's basically been 10 years since he has seen her. And that right there, guys, that is actually true for real life too. Some of us don't have very strong bonds with our parents. There's always this distance between us and our parents. Because let's be real, the children are always trying to do some stuff that we shouldn't be telling our parents. But I think this relationship between Rudy and his mother is actually pretty damn realistic. I think majority of us, even though we may not have a super close bond with our mother, I think it is our instinctual and logical want to go and save our mother. So that is the dynamic between that, how he really feels and what he should do. With Real Paul getting ready to pass his Grey Rat genes with his fist, Rudy gives the calm collected advice of going over how they should fight the Hydra. Clearly, it is resistant to magic and it barely touched Alina Lise, giving her that nasty wound. Once again, Rudy still wonders if his Kazan is even still alive, stuck in that crystal, naked. Real Paul already knows this and still won't accept Rudy's behavior. He stops Real Paul from doing something regrettable and that they should go back to the inn. Alina Lise butts in as well to say that they should stop fighting. Roxy acts like a scared little 300-year-old girl seeing her parents fight like her PTSD from being shunned by her village. Rudy tells Roxy that it will be okay and he knows that fighting with Real Paul isn't anything new for their relationship. It's a little snag like any kind of father-son relationship. Roxy points out that she can likely help Zenith and Alina Lise mentions that she knows someone that was crystallized as well, meaning Zenith is likely alive. This perks up Real Paul a little bit, but however, the Guardian Hydra that steals your naked mom is still a huge problem. This Hydra is a bit different from what everyone knows about a typical Hydra. Its scales are different, it heals extremely fast, and it keeps blocking all of their magic. Roxy explains that this Hydra is probably a Manatite Hydra that she has read in a book. It's a devil dragon that uses its scales to suck in all your delicious mana. Rudy. And this right here is your typical fantasy formula. There was a legend of this mythical being, but who knew? This shit is realer than Real Paul. Roxy answers Rudy's question that magic does in fact work on the Hydra. You just have to be back to back body heat to body heat range to inflict damage. But it regenerates too fast. Rudy uses his Earth knowledge from the Greek myths about the hero Heracles that you can stop that Piccolo regeneration of his head by sealing it with fire. Like most creatures with a strong outside exterior, that's not usually the case with the interior guts. Geese decides that Rudy's hypothesis of how to defeat the Hydra is actually worth the shot and asks Real Paul if he's down. While Real Paul has calmed down, something still doesn't seem to be satisfying him, as he agrees with everything that was just said. Geese senses Real Paul's change of enthusiastic demeanor, as Real Paul is the only one that can behead this mythical beast with his son, the Great Doranuma, burning its beheaded necks. Real Paul digs deep into his Grey Rat and whips out a can of fresh piece of humble pie. He mentions everyone by name except his son. And for the last time, thanks everyone for dealing with his problems. This is the last fight. These are his last words. This is his last vow of the great Real Paul Grey Rat's redemption. Real Paul's redeeming Grey Rat qualities shine in the scene as he lifts the morale for one last attempt to bring together his family. Alina Lisa is like, I should slap you more often. Tao Hen is like, so that is what Zenith looks like. Geese is like, let's fist bump. And Roxy is like,
This is how the episode started, with tons of optimism.
of course, none of the characters actually said that. But morale is sky high as Real Paul's redeeming qualities is shining through everyone's hearts. Because he is the great Real Paul Grey Rat, the father of the great Rudis Doranuma Grey Rat. Real Paul compliments his son because he is someone that can really be the rock of this Grey Rat family. Rudy once again says to save his flattery until after the it's all gravy moment. But Real Paul really wants his words to get through to Rudy because Real Paul isn't about being cool within the biggest moments. It's only Grey Rat goes red. Real Paul acknowledges what his bad qualities are because that is what a true mature man would say and be humble enough to say. This is Real Paul's guiding light, his lesson that should live within all of us as people. Nothing can stop this Grey Rat virus from infecting your mind and body and become one with your souls, because June 16th will forever be Real Paul Day. Real Paul tells Rudy something that can't actually be a good fatherly example for Rudy and says something selfish, but will forever leave a lasting memory that Rudy will tell all of his multi-animal grandchildren. Real Paul tells Rudy, save Kasan, even if you die. Hell yeah, Tosan, let's die together. Real Paul gives his last famous redeeming words of wisdom and they commence operation to bring back the Grey Rat family. Rudy acknowledges what Real Paul said shouldn't typically be said from a parent to a child, but this just shows how much Real Paul believes in his little Doranuma and his resolve to save Zenith, his wife. It is Rudy's duty as a son and just overall decent human being to live up to his father's high expectations and to finally save Kasan. No matter how connected or not connected you are to your parents, you feel this innate duty to them. They are your blood. In a quick transition, Real Paul's crew is back at this Manatite Devil Dragon Hydra. This time they have a plan, and this time it is the end all be all. And this time they are prepared for whatever happens. Real Paul commands the troops by giving the go signal. This time, the Hydra has no shot for the balanced group led by Real Paul Grey Rat. The warriors go head first between Real Paul Dragon Road and Tao Hen with support of Roxy and Rudy right behind them. The Hydra senses the stupid Ningen Tachi rushing towards his multiple scaly heads. Real Paul avoids multiple headshots as he lands one of his own. Doranuma is already right behind him, launches some fiery magic, but it gets denied once again. Meaning, Rudy has to get into extreme danger territory by getting real close and possibly wounded by a huge Hydra Bukake. Roxy asks Rudy if he's ready and responds that he's always ready. Real Paul tells Rudy to keep close to his back as the Hydra quickly regenerates. Real Paul, Alina Lise, and the dwarf help make an opening for Doranuma as he rushes in. Real Paul gives the signal to blast a big fiery Doranuma, and so Rudy does. He waits to see if his hypothesis works as one of the headless necks squirm, but the other head attacks Rudy. Alina Lise and Real Paul jump in the way to protect Rudy as he slices off another Hydra head. Rudy launches another up-close fiery blast as Alina Lise and Real Paul jump out of the way. Instead of a headshot, we're gonna call this
a neck shot.
Morale is sky high as these neck shots with a fiery blast seem to work. Real Paul catches another Hydra head and Doranuma lights that son of a Akuma dragon down with another blast. In the middle of his blast, Rudy calls for cover as Alina Lise comes to his aid. Miss Dragon Roll takes damage to that same shoulder and Rudy calls for Roxy to heal her up as they slightly retreat. She gets healed and all three, plus Tao Hen, scram for cover. This Hydra is taking one too many neck shots and is starting to let his scaly Hydra self loose. On his panic of terror, the father-son duel continues as Real Paul catches another Hydra head while Rudy catches its neck. The Hydra doesn't like this father-son duel, so it attempts to kill their Nakamatachi. Tao Hen tells Roxy to move her little special needs out of the way as the scaly Hydra guardian starts breaking down the ruined terrain. The Hydra catches Tao Hen and he is in imminent danger as he gets swung around like a setup for a grave regret. Real Paul quickly slices down another Hydra head as he lunges to help save Tao Hen from his end, in which He does, cause that's some real Paul shit. Townsend owes Real Paul an even bigger favor now, as he was saved by Real Paul's attack, while Rudy follows behind to shoot another fire attack to burn its neck. Both Hydra heads right in front of him start to scramble, and Townsend violently rolls on the ground as Roxy runs over to heal up the scrambled brain Townsend. Feeling the Hydra's HP going down, Real Paul gives the signal for Rudy to march forward to their next attack. However, we've hit an important plot point. When things seem to go too right, get ready for a twist as we get closer and closer to the climax. Rudy senses something wrong, and that is never ever good within the story because it never goes well. After these famous words, Real Paul rushes in and is stunned by the other Hydra head biting the other headless necks off. Real Paul yells out to not let the Hydra perfect sell itself. Alina Lise comes in clutch to stab the headless neck right in the middle, freezing it with her ice attack. It's now time for the greatly disrespected special needs demon, Roxy McGirdia, to launch one big fiery flamethrower of her own. The Hydra flops around in complete disgust of the special needs demon attack. Then it starts to do something unexpected that Rudy was foreshadowing that Real Paul now recognizes what it's doing as he tells everyone. His gray rat senses are tingling. As the Hydra flops, it starts to glow lines of yellow, and Rudy diagnoses the attack as a breath attack and tells everyone to surround him for his protection. Geese, been chilling on the sidelines getting ready to throw dust, rushes in along with the others as he shows why he is the great rudest Dornuma Grey Rat, and uses his friend's hugs as energy to launch a gigantic water spell shield that holds the Hydra's attack at bay. The Hydra loses steam as Rudy and others stay steaming and tells his father to go lose it all right now. Real Paul rushes in to cut another Hydra head off. Real Paul is really badass as hell. Rudy sends another fireball towards his neck to render it unrevivable. Real Paul rushes in to attack the Hydra head again towards the end and tries to Grey Rat slide back in Zenith's DMs. With Zenith in mind, another Hydra head is down, and Rudy stops another neck from growing another head. Rudy gets excited a little bit too quickly that there is only one more Hydra head left as his father saves his day and tackles him out of the way from danger. Then the Hydra keeps its gaze on little Dornuma while keeping the others at bay and start to attack Rudy once more. Then Real Paul Father's Day kicks the shit out of Rudy like he should have before, and Rudy tries to regain his composure while Real Paul gets some Hydra head. For once, Real Paul gets delivered a devastating blow that he's been delivering to it. The Hydra peekaboos Rudy as Dornuma freaks out and Dornuma fists its eye. And the Hydra carries him into the air like what happened to Townsend and loses his hand and calls out for Roxy. Roxy gets ready to launch another flamethrower and it stumbles the Hydra back, looking like it's about to finally meet its end. Rudy is on the ground in utter pain as he launches a heal spell that helps stop the bleeding and a little bit of the pain, but that loss of body part is unfortunately not like the Hydra's. His hand will not be coming back anytime soon, if not ever. And we all know what happened here. Not all things can end perfectly. Think about all the things that happened in this episode from the very beginning of the episode. Going into the unknown, making a very hard decision that you think is the best decision. Think about Rudy's perspective going against the man god's warning that this decision would be regrettable. This is seriously a regret right here. Now this puts into the perspective of what you think if this is regrettable or not. From my perspective, no regrets. As Rudy realizes that he would have died if it wasn't for Real Paul, he starts to thank his father, and then he looks up at the others. Everyone is in utter shock. Real Paul lies there, a real one. Rudy finally sees Real Paul's body, half of it, as he takes his last breath with his blood running down his eyes. The crystal encasing Zenith's naked body breaks as if the crystal wouldn't just impale her body as she falls. But however illogical and bittersweet the end is, life moves on. With the morale Grey Rat dead, Everyone walks through the hallway with Talhan carrying a continually passed out Zenith in silence. Roxy almost uses her special needs words to help cheer up the now only breadwinner of this Grey Rat family. This is not the time, Roxy. With the music playing of this sudden death of Real Paul, it transitions back to the inn as Real Paul's crew finally make it back, only with one less real one. In an artistic and depression fashion, and because they don't want to pay any voice actors, the anime gives us the violins of death as the gals that were waiting back at the inn for the great news receive their bittersweet losing a real one news. Then the creators of this anime allow words to be spoken. Lilia hugs Rudy and tells him that she's gonna take care of it and for him to get some rest. Rudy lies with one hand less and now fatherless. Is there regret? Probably, but that is life. As the episode starts to end, it shows that they cremated Real Paul right then and there in the labyrinth. For one last scene, it is duly noted that unfortunately, Zenith still won't wake up after 4 days. This is supposed to be the sweet in the bittersweet. But then, is there happiness? Nope. Zenith is a goddamn potato. This episode right here really reels you into the thought-provoking aspects of life or death. Not in a typical shonen way, but in a way that it legitimately connects you and makes you project from your own personal life to all of those around you, friends and family alike. I say it a lot in my videos for people that spoil the story for animes only to respect the journey because we all die anyways. While death is sad in an end of a life, it is a refreshing reminder that you should live the life the way that you know best. And Real Paul is a reminder that while things can end in tragedy, there is a legacy and lesson that you can leave behind that can forever be an impactful memory. Respect Real Paul Day because he is the great Real Paul Grey Rat. His character and life lesson from this episode right here will forever live within us. This is art right here, coupled with that metaphor from Real Paul's life, from Rudy's perspective as the main character. Real Paul honestly has a special place in my heart as a character. He is a one-of-a-kind character because of how realistic he is. He has a great father arc. He's a character with tons of flaws, but tons of redeeming qualities as well. And he, Real Paul, is a great representation of the everyday man. And I can't help but feel saddened, yet oddly happy that such a great character gets to make his last fatherly memory for Rudy to be one that will forever live within our hearts as one of tragedy, but that is one that is perfect for the redeeming Real Paul Grey Rat. No matter if Real Paul Day ever sticks, to me, I will remember every Father's Day as a Real Paul Day. So let's discuss a little bit of the man god's warning to Rudy that he will regret coming to save his Kasan. The purpose of the man god, I mean, we've talked about the man god before, what he kind of represents. He's a man god, a man has flaws. But with the end of Real Paul's life, that is what he would deem to be the regret for Rudy coming. But in reality, there are no perfect choices in life. But you can't not make one. You have to make a choice with what you know. Life is really just trying your best to make the best decision. Life is imperfect in that way. That is part of the human condition. That is the dilemma of decisions. The more relationships and responsibilities that you have, the more fruitful life can be. And while life can be more fruitful for having great relationships with people and with more and more people and with even deeper bonds, the opposite spectrum is true as well. And that spectrum is of tragedy and sadness. While Rudy's life became a lot more fruitful, those relationships that he built comes with the opposite spectrum, and that is the overall spectrum of life. Sorry, Roxy, you have to also think about the alternative. If Rudy never came to save his mom, Roxy probably dies, Norn will probably hate Rudy again, and maybe Aisha will start to turn around and judge him as well. So there's gonna be a lot of family strife in a way back at his own home. All the while, there will always be that lingering regret that he never did everything in his power to go save his mom. While he doesn't have that deep bond with his mother, it's all innate within us as children of our parents to want to go do what's best for them. He will probably continually have these kinds of nightmares. And how would you ever know if real Paul would ever end up saving Zenith and survive? In my humble opinion, I believe Rudy did the right thing. It's just not the outcome that we all hope for. We just don't know what we don't know. And to be honest, if we remove the man god out of the picture, you'd have to think that Rudy, on his own, would likely make this decision. The man god is just a representation of making these hard decisions. A person of higher power that just becomes another metaphor. This is just what it's like being a human being, man. And that's what makes life exciting, that we don't know the future. And you have to live with every decision that you make. What kind of dystopian life do people want to live knowing everything that's going to happen in the future? Part of life is really just not knowing, and that is what makes it exciting. We mustn't forget how amazing Real Paul was in this episode. Not only did he cut off all the Hydra heads himself, he saved Tauhan, he saved his son's life multiple times, and what he demanded from Rudy, he was willing to do himself. Die saving his wife. While we all want a happily ever after ending, it just doesn't work out that way as often as you'd want. But the genius of this arc in Real Paul's character is that he died accomplishing what he set out to do as a leader, and what I think is still a pretty damn good father, because he represents the everyman with faults that is just trying to do his best, and that's what makes him the best character of this series. Paul Brayrat, he died a real one, meaning it ain't over yet. Meaning this tragedy where it seems like things just keep getting worse. Meaning that Real Paul's tragedy that compounds with Zenith being a potato keeps getting worse. But with her still being alive, there is a glimmer of hope that she will turn around. So let me know what you guys thought about this episode. It is the best episode of season 2. It might be the best episode of the entire anime so far. Just remember that no matter what decision that you make in your life, there is only a possibly better outcome, and that is life. That is what I think this episode represents. That's what I think the arc of Real Paul represents, and this just becomes another hurdle from Rudy's perspective. That is life, that is our lives. We deal with these things, and that is just what living life is all about. And you know what, guys? The animation was really good, and that's pretty much all I have to say for this review, considering the animation. Alright guys, do me a favor, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Check out my blog at otakusen.com. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys on the next video.